In Musk, we trust. The issue is free speech. And the question is, Elon Musk buying Twitter really the victory that Republicans are claiming it to be?
Political revolution of the millennium.
Welcome to Political Playlist.
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy Hour.
Happy hour.
You fucked that up so bad.
God.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Michael Kristoff.
I'm Anna Muskie-Goldwyn.
Do I need announcing?
Oh, God.
And
Anthony Barquette.
He's still a little hazy from the desert.
I have an espresso martini.
Wow, with some good foam.
I think we should
Foam
start guessing what espresso pod I put in here. And then on the other martinis, what olives I have.
Are they flavored, the espresso pods?
Well, they're an espresso pods. They're from different countries.
Well, obviously, we have had a piece of cultural seismic news that seems to be the thing that everybody is talking about. And I can't really remember a time when an individual bought a company that has created this much of a sort of social media shockwave. And of course, we're talking about Elon Musk basically coming to an agreement with the board of Twitter to purchase the company for $44 billion. And he's going to take the company from being currently a public company into back being a private company. So I think there's a lot of elements about this, but the thing that I think we really want to focus on is the political ramifications of this, and specifically among Democrats and Republicans as this relates to free speech. And I'd ask the question, is Elon Musk buying Twitter really going to be the win that Republicans are celebrating it to be? They're claiming this is a free speech victory.
So if we take the 10,000 foot view of all this, I think that what's interesting is politicians are always looking for sort of cultural references to reinvigorate the positions that they have. And for a really long time, Republicans have been on this free speech march. And this move is affirmation of that, I think, namely because he literally used the phrase in the reason why he was buying the company.
Let me read you a quote from him. He said, "Free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated." So that seems to be exactly playing into what Republicans have long said, which is that social media companies continually censor conservative and right-leaning viewpoints.
Well, I wanted to bring up two people right off the bat because that relate to that point. One of which is Jim Banks, who is representative from Indiana. Jim Banks sent a letter. We love
letter alert.
We have like letters.
We should do a weekly segment. Letters from Congress. This week brought to you by Jim Banks.
So this week's letter is brought to you by Jim Banks, and it was a letter directly to Elon Musk. He and Elon are going to be buddies. He asked Elon to immediately revise the company's policy so that lawful and factually accurate speech, those were his words, won't be censored on the platform. So you have one very powerful Republican in the House writing directly to Elon. And then in the Senate, you have Josh Hawley, who is, I would argue, a powerful Republican. Maybe if you don't want to use the word powerful, I would say influential or very public-facing Republican, who has also personally urged Elon Musk to investigate Twitter employees on past censorship practices.
For sure, that's been happening. And I don't think it's intentionally from up above. I mean, let's face this. Anyone who's been at a company before knows in certain positions, you have tons of power, and it's up to you to give that advice to your superior, and then they rely on you. That's why you're hired. That's why you're an employee. For sure, there's employees there who are on the far left who are doing things who do not, want it to, and they can say, hey, technical glitch, whatever it is.
Well, also there's all this information coming out now about how basically like 98% of political giving from Twitter employees went to Democrats.
Wow.
No surprise.
And I agree with you, Anthony, but I also think that what is interesting compared to what, like in regards to what Michael was asking, is that it kind of feels like Republicans are suddenly saying, oh, like now we have like a buddy in our corner, right?
Yeah. I would say Elon is no one's buddy.
I don't think he's in anyone's
and
corner.
that's why, I mean, that's why I love
and I think it's
him.
kind of
like,
dumb of Republicans to suddenly think that this is going to
celebrate.
Yeah, it's kind of like you see who you're dealing with, right? Like,
right.
He's not a predictable guy. He's wavered on the political spectrum over the years. I would say that Elon is looking out for Elon and no one else. And I can believe that he believes in free speech. But I think that what the issue in our country right now is that there's a lot of different definitions of what free speech is.
For sure.
And I think that his maybe at the moment falls more in line with Republicans, but I don't know. It's like a tough job that he's about to embark on.
What's been really interesting is big tech has been something that has been agreed on by both sides that needs to be changed, even broken up here. And this is a total fireball that just got thrown in here where I don't know what it's going to do to all of those bills now. And how it's going to change that working togetherness on this. I think it's actually going to have a huge effect because free speech is now going to be one of the biggest points in all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's such an interesting quagmire, actually, that Republicans are sort of jumping into here because they are, thank you, Republicans in particular, people like Josh Hawley and others on our platform have been such advocates for big tech regulation, right? And saying that they need to regulate this, it's running rampant. And yet on the same hand, they're sort of now celebrating this almost like relinquishing of regulation within Twitter. So I feel like they're going to have to kind of walk a very fine line here because, okay, now they have like a buddy in Twitter, or so they think. And so they don't want to regulate Twitter, right? They want to deregulate Twitter in the name of free speech, but then they kind of want to now regulate Facebook because they don't have a buddy there.
I also think to this idea of how Elon Musk being at Twitter is going to change some of the behavior we see, especially from Republicans when it comes to big tech regulation. I also think it's going to have this real domino effect in every other issue and policy that we see, right? Like I was reading this very interesting article that was talking about Elon Musk's ties with China through Tesla.
Yeah.
And by the way, Twitter is banned in China. So all of the sudden, do you have a person who kind of is pulling levers of government in the US that has this other business is reliant, at least for now, on China for its batteries and whatnot?
Well, let me give you some numbers here. Okay, so
Anthony's job.
I'm stealing Anthony's. I'm just feeling.
Anthony, are you mad? Are you mad?
No. Unfollow.
Oh, no, yeah, I just I just unfollowed him on Twitter. Speaking of free speech,
I've been blocked. Last year, Twitter lost $493 million on $5.5 billion in revenue. By comparison, Facebook had profits of $39 billion on $118 billion worth of revenue. So the reality is that, Elon's a business guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like
he sees it being way more profitable.
Yeah. If Republicans are going to come in here and think that, he's just all about free speech.
Right. That it's all about the morals of it and whatever.
Yeah. I feel like he sees a company that is highly underproducing.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting.
To turn it around.
And to like, look, I think Elon, he threw out a decent, a number where the board has to look at that and go, okay, well, we need to talk about that. You can't just throw that aside. And I don't think Elon really thought they were going to take it. And then they agreed to it. He's like, all right, he's a man of his word. He's going to go through with it. Like he has the money. But that's what I think is so interesting about this situation.
Can I bring one of our faves into the conversation?
Please.
Our surpriser in chief, Matt Gaetz.
I knew he was going to pop up somewhere in this conversation.
Talked about Matt Gaetz in a while.
Mr. Gatesy.
So he had all this commentary about the fact that sort of overnight, conservative politicians were gaining a lot of followers and Democratic politicians were losing a lot of followers, which numerically was true. So he said, it is really something how conservative accounts are getting massive follower increases today. I think the shadow ban clasp may be coming off. I think that it creates this environment, to your point, Anthony, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, where people, but I think in this case, it's more Republicans because the Republicans are the ones who are like super stoked right now. It creates an environment where people feel like he said, the clasp is off, that you're free. And this idea of freedom, which I think we've talked about a lot on here, is like, what is the definition of that? What are the limits of that? Should there be limits of that? And what I think gets kind of dangerous, and what I think come to bite some of these Republicans in the ass in a little while when they realize that Elon Musk doesn't really love them, is that there's an encouragement of people to now come to Twitter in droves to defend this freedom that had previously been indefensible because they were banned.
Well, I think that's a very simple thing of what's going on here. You're losing all the fray of the people who are way too dramatic to begin with, and then you're bringing in all these probably neo-Nazi people, right wingers who I saw
a whole thing how it was does this mean it's the end of Black Twitter, which is this huge thing of Black Twitter having all this social commentary that is a safe space for Black people to talk. I think similarly now you're going to see a surgence of much more sort of right-wing people feeling like now they have their safe space to talk. And what I think is crazy is now it's going to be up to Elon Musk and the policies he puts in place to decide what of those groups is okay.